Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast or video, depending on how you're getting this. Welcome to another Hallway Feeds episode here.
Hallway Feeds made for this.
Made for this, that's right. However you're going to get it, we're made for that. So I'm Anthony Cook, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Hallway Feeds, joined by my colleague Morgan McQuarrie,
Hello.
Director of Emerging Markets. And we have with us today Dr. Katie Young with Kentucky Equine Research. And she's out in Kansas calling in with us today. Hello, Dr. Young. How are you?
I am good. It's nice to be here.
So you told us you're out in Kansas.
Yes, I'm in one of the Kansas City suburbs on the Kansas side.
And we had to wait until you were done getting a little horsework done to have this conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, I have my own horses to deal with, and then I also, for fun, give some riding lessons. And so this week has been, I was traveling a few weeks ago, so I've been catching up on riding lessons and getting farrier in and all the things that all horse people get to deal with.
Right. So we have a fun, easy one a question we always want to start with, and it's, what was that first moment with a horse? What was that first pivotal, man, this is what I want to do. I want to be part of this. So what was that first horse or the first moment when it sparked?
This is a sad thing. I personally, I think there must be some hereditary component, although none of my family is involved in horses. My mom tells me before I was talking, I was drawing horses, I was pointing at horses. So I honestly I don't have a memory of, when the light bulb went on. And again, nobody else in my family, it's just me. My dad was in academia, he was a sociologist, and my mom was a high school librarian, so nobody knows. Just came out.
So at what age did your parents finally allow you to pursue your passion with horses?
When I was 11, we finally moved to a place where I was able to actually start taking riding lessons. And then the Christmas, I think when I was 11, they got me a horse for Christmas, which did the really, can tell they were non-horse people, because they got me, with the help of the instructor, a 4-year-old Greenbroke quarter horse, which it was one of those things, well, I was either going to learn to ride or I was going to die. So I'm still here, so I didn't die. But
perfect.
The famous green on green equals black and blue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, you learn you learn and survive, or you don't. So luckily it worked out, and I stuck with horses, and it turned into a career. And my parents, since that when I was 30, my dad said, I guess this is not a phase you're going to grow out of. No, I don't think so.
I guess not.
Nope, not at this point. I think it's stuck.
Yeah, so speaking of that, nice transition. Thanks. Right into your career. So you're with Kentucky Equine Research. What do you do at KER?
I'm actually a consulting equine nutritionist, and Dr. Joe Pagan, the owner and founder of KER, just has me involved in a lot of different things. Going back, my background, I got my PhD at Texas A&M and was on the faculty there for several years, so I have a big teaching background. And then I moved into industry and worked for a feed company in Kansas City that went bankrupt, and ended up going as a consultant, and worked for Purina Mills at the time as a consultant for quite a few years, and then worked full-time for them and was the technical nutritionist in charge of all the Purina horse feed formulas. So I have a big background then in teaching, in formulating. I was also involved in the quality control and regulatory and just all sorts of things. And then when we parted ways, I've known Joe for decades. So we started talking, and there are many aspects of the KER business that I have some different background to bring in. So I'm involved in a lot of the background pieces of KER in supporting the partners with either training, involved to some extent in formulation, and in a lot of the platforms and programs that Joe has been working with. So there's just lots of different, and KER is so involved, of course, in the research, and then taking the research out into the horse world, either in just information or in supplements. And I've been involved in some of that kind of role with KER as well, and customer service, and talking to a lot of horse owners when they call in and they have problems. And most recently, I've been doing a lot of consults for horse owners that are dealing with muscle myopathies in horses, because that's an area that research is ongoing, and KER has been working with Dr. Stephanie Valberg for years in supplements to help support horses with these various myopathies. So I've been pretty active in that piece of the business as well.
Wow. Yeah, so we'll have to leave the myopathies for another day, because that's another great conversation we need to get into.
Yes.
Because everything that we know historically now from Dr. Valberg's research in KER, it's still true, but now we've segmented it down even further, and we have better answers for different myopathies we didn't know about 20 years ago.
It's a different world today than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. Back 20 years ago, we just had horses
Very
that tie
exciting.
up. And now
Right.
we know
Yeah.
so much more.
That's right.
It's getting complicated.
So we had the pleasure, Morgan and I had the pleasure, along with the sales team from Hallway Feeds, to be down at the KER Nutrition Conference in Ocala, Florida, back in January. And February. It all runs together this year, golly.
Yeah.
But we some allergy testing, and my gosh, when you talk about getting to the end user, which we love that KER works with, feed mills, the manufacturers, they bring research to manufacturers that they can use. But then this was some research and information that we can take to the end user, to the actual horse people. And we said, okay, we need to learn more about, or we need to actually share this information on allergy testing with the everyday horse owner. They need to hear this. And so that's why you're here, Katie. We want to hear about the allergy testing.
The number of calls that we get every week, whether it be from end users, from veterans, different out, and saying, how do we combat this? Every single horse that we've come across is allergic to flax. What am I doing? So being able to put out accurate information and then kind of help ease the mind of some of these horse owners, I think is key.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, and being involved in customer service, it's the same thing. I get horse owners that say, okay, I got back the serum allergy test, and my horse is allergic to this and this and this and this and this. And what do you have that doesn't have any of that in it? And I get to the point where I'm going, air. I have a bag of air that you can feed your horse. But
they haven't put that one on the allergy test yet.
Oh man, there would be horses that would show a positive, I'm sure. And the thing with serum allergy testing, well, the first thing to realize in horses that food allergies are uncommon. Horses don't tend to have actual allergies to foods. And I guess before that, I should kind of specify there are allergies and there are sensitivities. And the typical allergic response to anything is a similar type of responses that humans get. In horses, we're going to see hives. You may see some respiratory. You may see a snotty nose. Sometimes you see their eyes are running. But that's an allergy. But a sensitivity is when there's a digestive component, and there's something going on in the digestive system. But in any case, true food allergies in horses are just rare. And I'm not going to say it never happens, but it doesn't happen as much as people think that it does. And usually these serum allergy testing, the veterinarian is going to have the blood test run because it's the easiest type of diagnostic tool to try and get to the bottom of these issues. And for some allergens, the environmental allergens, the serum allergy testing can be helpful. But what happens with the food allergies, there are several drawbacks, because what is happening in the serum allergy testing, they're looking for the immunoglobulin E, which is the substance that is present in the blood as a response to allergies. So with the serum allergy testing, they have all these little purified extracts, hopefully, of typical allergens. For humans, it's going to be, all the different plants and the pollens and possibly molds that they test with the blood to see if there is a response. If the IgE binds to that purified allergen that they put it in contact with. Some of the tricky things then is finding purified allergens. For instance, if you wanted to test and see if a horse had a soy allergy, where are you getting the purified allergen for soy to see if there is a binding in the blood sample? But then realistically, in some of the research, you can see these types of positives that show up on the test, and in reality, there is no food allergy to start with. So it's and for instance, the deal with flax, the flax allergens apparently became available fairly recently, because back 10 years ago, you didn't ever see flax even show up on a serum allergy test, and now it shows up as positive, like for all horses. And then I haven't done this myself, but I did hear a nutritionist report. She did track back with one of these companies and say, what's going on? And they said, well, we haven't really done enough testing to ensure that response is reliable. It's like, okay, so all these people think their horses are allergic to flax. That's great. So now they're looking for feeds that don't have any soy in them, don't have any alfalfa. I see a lot that they've tested positive to all sorts of grass hays. So you don't want any of those grass hays. Soy, flax, just wheat, oats. Again, all these ingredients that realistically are very likely not causing any problems. But again, it's a simple test. The other allergy tests that people are more familiar with for humans would be the intradermal skin testing, where I had that done when I was a kid, and they go in and they have looks like a swarm of trained mosquitoes came, and you've got all the patch with all the little skin pricks, and then they're looking for reactions or wheals, which is just a little raised patch. That can be done on horses, but it's a lot more invasive. You've got to shave a big patch, and you have to come back and look for those wheals, those little raised areas. And again, it's not the greatest for food allergies. So it's just a tricky thing, and people are trying to get some easy diagnostic tools. But this one for food allergies is just, it's not really a good one. And actually, there's quite a bit of documented research that says serum allergy testing is not appropriate to diagnose food allergies. I'm not going to say that it's not helpful for some of the typical environmental allergens, but for food allergies, I would definitely go a different route.
It's great information. Tell us a little bit about when we were in Ocala, you were telling us about a little experiment that you did to kind of see what.
Yes, and I personally, I can't take credit for this little experiment. A former colleague and good friend of mine actually ran this, just as to look in as a question for as to the validity of these serum allergy testings. So she just went on the internet and found a couple different labs that offered serum allergy testing, and she's a veterinarian, so she was able to, this is a resource usually that veterinarians use. So she took 2 samples and from horses and sent them to 2 different labs, and basically 2 horses to each lab, and you fill out information on the history of each of them, and you send the blood sample. And so I have the notes here. So one of the horses was Trixie, was an 8-year-old quarter horse mare, history of pruritus, which is itchiness, and hair loss on the face and neck, mild chronic colic and diarrhea. It was not seasonal. Trixie was mostly in the pasture, but stalled twice daily for grain meals and grooming. And the diet was fescue pasture, mixed grass hay, and a typical pelleted horse feed.
Mm-hmm.
And the second horse was Bay Cruiser, 15-year-old thoroughbred gelding. Again, history of the itchiness, but also hives on his barrel and neck, nasal discharge with occasional cough. So the really typical symptoms of an allergy. And it was seasonal, which to me, when it's seasonal, my first thought is, oh, environmental, pollen, something. But in any case, Bay Cruiser was in the stall 50% of the time and a dry lot 50% of the time. His diet was Bermuda grass hay and a different pelleted performance feed. And she got back the results from both of these horses, from both of the companies, and she compared all the results and looked for, for Trixie and Bay Cruiser, Company A versus Company B. And there were quite a few differences between the companies on the 2 horses. So she compared and she did statistics, and it was interesting on both horses. For Company A, the food allergies were different than Company B. And just some of the results for Trixie on Company A, 27 out of the 89 potential allergens were positive in 2 foods, which were beets and corn. And for Trixie Company B, 21 out of 56 allergens were positive in 5 foods, including barley, corn, milo, oats, and rice bran. Now, this was done before flax was on the panels, so I guarantee flax would have been positive. And so for Trixie, the agreement between the companies was 22 out of 36 of the total allergens were in agreement, or only 61% agreement. Bay Cruiser actually was the same, 61%, but they were different allergens. Bay Cruiser for Company A didn't have any food allergies positive, but Company B had molasses, oats, and wheat. Now, the really tricky thing, and I have this picture, which, let's see if I can, I'm going to see if I can hold this up. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Which one is that? Is that Bay Cruiser or Trixie?
That's Dottie. That is the one horse. Because these were split serum samples from the one horse who had no signs or history of any kind of allergies whatsoever. Never had hives, never had a snotty nose, didn't have any digestive problems. So Dottie was just perfectly fine. But with coming along with all these, the results was, of course, the offer to purchase. Sometimes they offer supplements, sometimes they offer injections to deal with all these allergies. And so it's again, I'm I'm not going to really vilify these companies for the environmental allergens, and environmental allergies are not uncommon in horses. It's just that food allergies are. So, and I have heard some people having good results for treating for environmental allergies, but it's when they take the food allergies and again come back to the feed company and say, what do you have that has nothing in it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen other companies take really big advantage of this blood serum and allergen testing when customers call and say, hey, I need something that doesn't have any of these ingredients in it. Well, there's foreign companies who have ingredients that aren't on the allergen testing. So like, oh, it's perfect. You can feed this product because look, it's got none of those ingredients because it's from another country.
Yeah.
I just find it very interesting. The challenges that horse owners are facing and trying to believe the science that's presented to them. They believe that these blood serum tests, there is a science component to it, but
they're trying to do right by their horse, and I'm a horse owner too. We try to do right, but it's the people who try to take advantage of that frustrate me. But then again, the horse owners who are really dealing with allergies, you also do want to help them. So that,
100%.
and the thing is with serum allergy testing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, so what would you say is the best route to take for these horse owners that are experiencing some kind of sensitivities? What would you say is the sensitivity for the horse experiencing some kind of food sensitivity versus an environmental sensitivity? I know you said that before. And what would be your suggestion for them to figure out what maybe that horse is having a sensitivity to?
And great question, because for food allergies, while I said they're uncommon, it's not impossible, but the only real way to diagnose a food allergy is to perform an elimination diet, which unfortunately that's much more work than just pulling some blood and sending it in for testing, but that's going to get you real results. So just kind of quick and dirty, to perform an elimination diet, you take the horse off everything except just grass hay, and for several weeks you feed, at least 2 to 4 weeks, you feed him just grass hay, and it's not the ideal nutritional diet, but the horse isn't going to completely fall apart in a short period of time. And so if there truly is a food allergy and you're dealing with typical allergy symptoms like hives, if you take them off whatever it is that's causing it, they're going to go away. So if you put them on a grass hay diet and within a few weeks the hives go away, then you can say, it may have been a food allergy, truly. Now, if you have them on the grass hay diet and the hives don't go away, then you say, okay, either it's not a food allergy or there's a problem with the grass hay. And then you would try a different source of forage and again, see if the symptoms go away. So once again, if you've done that and symptoms don't go away, you're not dealing with a food allergy. If the symptoms do go away, that still doesn't necessarily mean that you're dealing with a food allergy. It may be that whatever was in the environment, whether it's a pollen or insects or something, that may have resolved. So then you'd go to the next phase of the elimination diet and you start adding things back in one at a time and see if the symptoms come back, which that's a tricky thing, because when I say one at a time, you're talking about the feed, whatever supplements you were feeding, whatever treats you were feeding, you add them back in one at a time. Hopefully, when you add the feed back in, that doesn't make the symptoms come back, because if it does, then you have to deconstruct the feed and say, okay, what are the main ingredients in the feed, and go back, take the feed away and start adding ingredients back in one at a time. But truly, that's the only way. When you add the ingredients back, if you add something back and the symptoms come back, and then you take it away again and the symptoms go away, okay, you've got some pretty good information there that is an issue for your horse. So again, it's a pain. It
Sounds
is
about
it's
right.
a lot of work.
Maybe they should just do a hair analysis.
Going from bad to worse.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we jump right into hair mineral
Yes,
analysis?
please.
Okay. Yes, you guys went to we had just a series of presentations at the conference on all these interesting diagnostic tests that are available, and what kind of good information are they actually sharing. So hair mineral analysis, this is another one that uh, when you're trying to figure out what's going on with a horse, and you want a test that is fairly simple to do in the field. And so the hair mineral analysis, you just take some mane hairs or some tail hairs and send them into a lab, and they're analyzed, and you get the report back that says your horse is deficient in this mineral, this mineral, this mineral, or the ratios are off on this mineral, this mineral, this mineral. And then you try to, adjust the diet to correct for those reported deficiencies, excesses, or imbalances. So this is another one, and this I did this little test myself. I sent in to one of the big companies who still offer hair mineral analysis, and I sent in. I have pictures of all these horses. This is when I had a whole herd of lesson horses. At this point in my career, I don't try to maintain a herd of horses anymore for lessons. That is too expensive. But I had a herd, and I had a little gray mare named Abby and a little chestnut quarter horse mare named Tegan. And so I sent some gray hair and some nice red chestnut hair into this outfit. And I told them the story of the two horses, because Abby tended to have a seedy toe. That's something I fought with her entire life. And she tended to be a little bit hot. She's a little overreactive. She was a pretty easy keeper. So, I sent all that in. And then Tegan was a little quarter horse mare, and I could put beginners on her. She wasn't a steady Eddie, but she was pretty trustworthy. She was a hard keeper, didn't have any feet problems. But just kind of, let's send them in and see what they say about the nutritional program. Got back the two different results for Abby and Tegan. And it was very interesting how many mineral imbalances they found. And they were different, of course, for Tegan and Abby. And Abby also thought this was very interesting. In the hair mineral analysis for Abby, they found she was deficient in the B vitamin biotin. And I was going, well, how'd you get a B vitamin out of the hair mineral analysis? But, okay. And then, of course, there were supplements I could buy for each of the horses to correct the deficiencies and imbalances. And in this case, the actual hair came from my little paint mare Keelan, because it was really nice. Her mane was red and white. And so I took the hair from a little 1-inch gap of the red and the white and sent them in. I never could figure out how I was going to feed the white parts of Keelan different than the red parts of Keelan. So again, not a good way to diagnose nutritional deficiencies or imbalances. I will say on hair mineral analysis, there are some uses for that, because if you're looking for like toxicities, heavy metal toxicities, that certainly can be useful. And it can be useful for some veterinary issues with drugs. So long-term use of drugs, that kind of thing can possibly show up in a hair mineral analysis. But
What about external contaminants on the hair?
Oh, absolutely. They live in it. Not if you think about not just the environmental contaminants, but let's say you bathe your horse, you use a skin conditioner on your horse, you fly spray your horse, because one of the things that on both Well, on most of the hair mineral analyses I see, a lot of times like arsenic is high, and I'm going, yeah, that's not dietary.
Yeah.
So it just the hair is not a good source of um, diagnosing anything nutritionally. And actually,
Mhm.
in the same in our same little series of presentations, Dr. Peter Huntington, our KER veterinarian who's over in Australia, talked about just using blood testing to look for nutritional
Oh,
deficiencies, imbalance. And that's another one that there are a few nutrients that, yes, you can see differences in the blood, but for most nutrients, you really don't, because the body keeps blood levels where it wants them to be. And so to actually see the body status of those nutrients, you have to look where the body tends to store those nutrients. And sometimes that's in the bones, sometimes that's in the liver. And so those kind of things, you're not going to be, pulling out bone content. You're not going to do liver biopsies. So when people really want to look at the nutritional status of their horse, the best thing that I recommend is to start with just doing a total ration evaluation. And I don't usually even go that far, but if I have a horse with a problem, this was years ago, I got called in because there was a barn that had reining horses and they did a lot of their own breeding. And of course, the first thing they do, they'll call you and say, what did you do to the formula? Because your feed is
yeah.
not performing the way, I know you guys hear that. Your feed's not performing the way it should be. And you're going, we did nothing to the formula. It's the same
Yeah.
formula. But in this situation, he started to have his crop of babies were exhibiting more DODs than
Mhm.
he'd ever seen before. And so I got sent out, and so I started sampling. I sampled the feed, which I knew we hadn't changed the formula, but I went ahead and sampled because sometimes things happen, and
Yeah.
maybe something happened in this case, but of course over time, maybe one batch of feed something happened, but over time that shouldn't be the case. But I went ahead, I sampled the feed. He had two different sources of hay. I sampled the hay, I sampled the pasture, I even sampled the water, got everything analyzed, and then put it together and said what nutritionally is wrong here. And this is a situation that I actually did find something wrong. The
Mhm.
total diet for the brood mares was incredibly low in phosphorus.
Mhm.
Usually the forages are good sources of phosphorus. They may not be, huge in phosphorus, but they're usually an adequate source of phosphorus. And his hays were the lowest phosphorus level hays I had ever seen.
Interesting.
And yeah, and it was different hay. He used to also buy alfalfa from a different outfit and feed to the brood mares. And I expect that alfalfa was coming in and it had adequate phosphorus to compensate for his grass hays. So it wasn't the
Mhm.
feed, but we were able to fix it with the feed because I just came in and said, okay, let's go ahead and just add a little bit of ration balancer to the feed to bump up the nutrient content.
Yeah.
So again, but it was just a ration evaluation. So let's look at what you're feeding and make sure that you're feeding all of the nutrients in proper balances to meet those horses' requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, sometimes hair testing can be useful. There was an instance at the racetrack here where a trainer got in trouble for, now it was a post-mortem, unfortunately, but got in trouble for a positive in a racehorse. And he said, I have never given this racehorse, and I believe it was clenbuterol. And they went so far as to do a hair analysis, and they proved with the timeline on it, no, that came before he had ever purchased the horse, going back through the timeline. So there's a very specific case. But if you're
Yeah.
trying to see, for other uses, it's not designed for that.
No, no. Again, it's not going to really accurately reflect a horse's nutrient status. So for that, and again, it's an easy effort to get information that then one can buy the appropriate supplements and correct those perceived balances, when in reality, usually if they're feeding a good, well-formulated, balanced feed that's designed to go along with the forages, because straight forages are missing out on several nutrients, as y'all know. So if they get a well-formulated feed that's fortified and feed it as recommended, then you don't usually need a bunch of vitamin and mineral supplements. And yeah, if your horse has a specific issue, that there is a specific supplement that may help, that is one thing, but that's not usually a nutritional supplement. That's something else that is designed to be helpful with that condition.
Well, I tell you what, we certainly appreciate your time today, because you can boil it down and you make it so simple. We try and have these conversations, and you want to be nice to people and say, "Oh, please let me help you." So I hope this absolutely goes viral and people will watch it and go, "There's our answer." There's uses for all these bits and pieces, but let's make sure it's the right one. Allergy serum testing, and let's scratch it. If we're truly concerned, we're going to have to go down the route of an elimination diet, and then let's leave the hair testing not for nutritional state. Let's have a valuation of everything we're doing, everything the horse can consume, and start there. So, wow, great advice.
Well, thank you. Yes, I do hope people listen, because in the end, as a nutritionist, my goal is try to help the horse owners and the horses get what they need to support whatever performance and long health. Heck, I've got a 37-year-old who is still in riding lessons and jumping. So I want the best for him. I hope I don't have to will him to somebody to, I hope he doesn't outlive me, but he may. But yeah, that's the goal. And I think pretty much feed companies, nutritionists, we're all trying to help horse owners feed their horses in a way to support the performance they want and nice, long, healthy lives. And we're not trying to sell them a bunch of snake oil. We really want to help them do the right things.
Yes, agree.
Absolutely. Okay, so that wraps it up today. For more information, if you have questions for us, please reach out to us, info@hallwayfeeds.com. Check out our website. It's got our phone number on there and ways to reach out to us individually. And I'll go ahead and give a plug to Kentucky Equine Research. They have a great website with a library on it full of lots of informational articles.
Accurate information, not blog information.
Real science to prove it. So I use it almost on the daily to forward articles when people have questions. So thank you, Dr. Young. It was great having you with us today.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.